Hi there, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be looking at how to make kombucha, which is kind of growing in popularity at the moment. It's starting to crop up in some of the supermarkets, and it's something that can be made at home quite easily, and you can basically flavour it with anything you like. It's such a good thing to make, such a fun fermentation project. So this video is going to be shot in a kind of weird way because I've got a batch fermented, I've got a batch second fermented, and I'm going to be talking about how to ferment. So if it seems a bit out of order, that's probably why, but we'll crack on and go for it. To make kombucha, you start off with, this is a US gallon jar, which I think is 3.9 litres, just the typical kombucha kit that you can buy online. And usually I fill a small amount at the bottom with cold water. I usually just use straight tap water. I'm in Scotland, so I've got like good quality water, but filtered water is supposed to work better, but I've always had good results with tap water. So I'm going to be using the Sage tea maker to make my tea, and I'm going to be using this is Teapigs Everyday Brew. This is about £7.50 for a 100 g bag. Don't really see the point in using really high quality tea to make this because the tea tastes lost by whatever you secondary ferment with, so I just use this. So 6 teaspoonfuls. I usually just use heaped teaspoons. I put that in the Sage tea maker with 1 litre of water, and I brew that at 100 degrees for 5 minutes. And after 5 minutes, I've now got a batch of really strong tea. I've got a litre of that, so I can just take that, pour it into here. And then to this, I add 1 cup of sugar, or about 250 grams. I give that a whisk, just to dissolve the sugar. And then I'll top this up with some cold water. So the reason I add cold water is just to cool this down, because like any kind of yeast, the SCOBY will die if it goes into water that's too warm. So now it's just slightly warm to the touch, and I'm going to put in my starter tea and just leave the SCOBY just now. I'll keep that in the bowl. And I want to do a pH reading after I've whisked this in. So you don't really need to do a pH reading, but it's very handy because it gives you a good gauge of how acidic your kombucha is, and basically you want it less than 4.5. So that's 4.2, which means I can add a bit more water to top it up. When you add water, it will raise the pH, so just add, whisk to mix, and then test again. That's 4.24, so I'll just add a bit more. Whisk again quickly. And 4.27, so that's perfect. So I'll just put my SCOBY back in, and gently. The SCOBY can sit on the top, it can sink, it can fall to the bottom, doesn't really matter as long as it's in there. And the last detail is just to cover it with some muslin or some cloth and put a rubber band around, which I don't seem to have, but I will find. So once this is covered, this goes into a warm, dark place for about 6 days is my kind of go-to, until the pH comes down, and we'll touch on that in the next section. So once again, we're just going to take a pH reading of this, and anything less than 3.5 is considered kombucha. I'll just check this. So this is 3.23, which is exactly where I like it. That's perfect. It's still, if you taste it, it's still a bit sweet. There's still some of the sugar, I believe, left in it, but for me, this is the point to start bottling and start the second fermentation. So in my heated fridge, that's been 6 days at 25 Celsius, and it's got me to the point where I want to be. And I know from experience that 6 days is about right for this size of batch. The first thing I want to do is remove the SCOBY and put it into a clean bowl. You just do that by picking it up and transferring it into a bowl. Easy as that. I then want to keep some starter tea for my next brew. So a few cups. Now that I've taken the starter tea and I've transferred the SCOBY, I can set this to the side. It's worth covering this up if you don't intend to use it for a while, just with some cling or plastic wrap. And this is what we have left to bottle up and turn into any flavour of kombucha. So I'm just going to spin it slightly to get the yeast at the bottom. And then we can start secondary fermentation. This is where we can add any flavour we like to the kombucha. And it helps generally if you add something like with natural sugars, like any kind of fruit, it will build up that carbonation in the bottle. So the first one I'm going to be doing is lychee and lime, and then I'm going to be doing raspberry and lemon, kind of plain raspberry lemonade. So we just basically fill up a bit of the bottle with some lychees. Got my lychees in, and now I'm just going to put probably about an entire lime. There's not really any great science to this. Just basically whatever you've got will pretty much work. And then I find it easier to pour this into a smaller jug that you can pour into, and then pour into the bottle with a funnel. So I'll just fill this up, giving it about 1 inch of headspace just for carbonation. There is arguments for and against headspace. I tend to kind of sit in the middle somewhere. Touch wood. I've not had a bottle explode on me yet, but I dare say that could happen. So now that's bottled up, I can just put the cap on and that can go and be fermented. Now that this is bottled, cap's on, and I can put it in my heated fridge, and I'll leave that for about 3 days. That seems to be about the ideal level of carbonation that I like. It's usually quite fizzy by that point. And yeah, there's debates on whether you can open the cap slightly and burp it every day. Recently I've not been doing that because I found you lose quite a bit of the carbonation if you do that, so I've not been. There is a risk for that, obviously, that the bottles can explode, so you do that at your own risk. I'm quite willing to take that risk, so I'm quite happy to do that. But so far that's what's working for me, and it seems to be working pretty well. That's everything now bottled up and ready to be put away for 3 days at 25 degrees or longer. Just basically depends on how much carbonation and how further fermented that you want to make it. After 3 days, you end up with kombucha. And this one's ginger, juniper and lemon, and this one's set for 3 days. So it's going to open it and hopefully it's not too carbonated. Perfect. You can see there, over 3 days, it just gets a really good amount of carbonation. You've got to be careful, sometimes they get really fizzy and they can pop open, so sometimes you need to open it at a bit of an angle into the glass, but this one, luckily, is perfect. Tastes amazing as well. Again, this is a perfect example of what you can put in these. So ginger, juniper and lemon is kind of a play on like a gin and tonic almost. That was the idea behind this one with the juniper and the lemon. So yeah, lovely. And as always, if you've liked this video, please click like and subscribe. Thank you.